So, Namaste everyone. Welcome to this webinar of Whispers of Gaia 2 with Utsav and Sneha ji. I'm Anshuman from Brihat, and let us all close our eyes and I'll invocate Ma Durga with her 32 names and then we'll begin the session. So, I request everyone to close their eyes. Om Durga, Durgarti Shamani, Durga Padmini Varini, Durga Machedini, Durga Sadhini, Durga Nashini, Durga Todharini, Durga Nihantri, Durga Ma Paha, Durga Ma Jnanada, Durga Daityalokada Vanala, Durga Ma Loka, Durga Ma Atma Swarupini, Durga Marga Prada, Durga Ma Vidya, Durga Ma Shrita, Durga Ma Jnana Samsthana, Durga Madhyana Bhashini, Durga Moha, Durga Maga, Durga Martha Swarupini, दुर्गमा सुर संहंत्री दुर्गमा युद्धधारिणी दुर्गमांगी दुर्गमता दुर्गम्या दुर्गमेश्वरी दुर्गभीमा दुर्गभामा दुर्गभा दुर्गदारिणी ओम we may begin the session now. Simon, over to you.
Yes, I just pinned our guest. Yes, wonderful. Yes. Namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm very excited to host you all on the Saturday afternoon. So today we are very grateful to host our special session with Sneha Kopulla ji, a leading permaculture practitioner from Aranya Agricultural Alternatives. Snehaji's work is truly transformative, spanning across permaculture, local food systems, and regenerative agriculture. She has been forefront in promoting sustainable agriculture practices to restore not only ecosystem but also empower local communities. And alongside we have Utsav from TD, based in Darjeeling. TD is an experiential eco-learning center. I highly recommend you all checking out Aranya Agriculture Creatives and TD page to check out their innovative climate-based action initiatives and lots of permaculture upcoming workshops which are coming out on their platform. And I am Simran from Brahat. Brahat is a cultural creative engine. We work extensively in Bharatiya Gyan Parampara to curate meaningful research, design, and creatives rooted in Indian civilizational consciousness. And it is our shared reverence for nature which is bringing us all together on this table today to have this conversation. And and as we all know that in our culture we have always revered nature as Bhumi Devi. And let's begin on this note. So over to you, Utsav and Snehaji. Please take us ahead in this conversation. Thank you. Utsav, you are on mute.
Okay,
We
thank
cannot
you.
hear you.
Yeah. I'm unmuted now. Thank you, Simran, and thank you, Anshuman. So it's a pleasure again to be hosting this, I would say, season one, second episode of Whispers of Gaia. And so just to give a context as to what is the background about this particular initiative that we have taken. So Brahat is an organization where two of the co-founders, Reena and Raghav, are my very good friends from Hyderabad. So we happened to catch up with each other's work after, decades. And then we happened to discuss about what we were doing. So they're doing some wonderful work on reviving the Indic knowledge system. And in a way, we can say that's Purkho ka culture or Purkha culture. And so that's the route that they are taken. And here at TD, we are practicing permaculture. So in some ways, even though our lines ran parallel, it started to merge together. So that's when we thought that why don't we join hands, so to spread the awareness about what is of prime importance right now, to kind of be conscious about what's happening with our only home, and see if we can, you know, create events like this or webinars or workshops that can uh, make it easier for people to access knowledge. So with that, I think Soilstry was one of our first initiatives. And then we have another workshop for introduction to permaculture. And Simran has played a very important role in this, where she's managed to help us design this workshop. And while researching, I'm sure Simran is becoming a Purkho ka permaculturist by herself now. So thank you. And when we're talking about whispers of Gaia or Mother Earth, uh, who better to bring on board than Sneha, okay, who's been part of, I would say, the second generation of permaculturist in Aranya, and for this very, important as well as insightful conversation. So welcome on board, Sneha. It's a pleasure to have you on board, and thank you for being part of this webinar.
Thank you, Utsav. Thank you, Simran. And thank you, Anshuman ji, for having me here. Thank you, Brat and TD, for organizing this session. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you today.
And you know what? I kind of visited Aranya for the first time last year when we had the National Permaculture Convergence. It's a shame because I lived in Hyderabad for 12 years, but I had no clue of permaculture or composting while I was living there. Only once I started the project here is when I got to know about it. But it was so wonderful to, catch up with you and Narsana sir, Padma ma'am. So I would say soil regeneration runs in your blood then.
Yes, absolutely does.
So that brings me to my first question for you. So you were in the US for a long time, right? You were in the States for a long time. And
Yes.
what made you come back, and join hands with Nasar Nasar and Padma ma'am, your father and your mother, to spark this revolution of permaculture learning in Aranya?
I think being there for 5 years or being there, somehow I felt that that's not my place to be in,
Mhm,
with a kind of culture that I'm coming from. You're being closer to the land, closer to the community, closer to
mhm,
the people that we have worked with for quite a long time, and being there. I felt I was becoming more of a self-centered person, not contributing much to the society, and also looking from an academic and a professional perspective. I did my master's in food and nutrition, and I worked as a food quality specialist there, and growing food back home and working with the community in agricultural sector with the women, and seeing all the intricacies of where the food is coming from, and me academically doing food and nutrition and going to the US, and they're talking about food. You don't know where the source of food is coming from, yet you end up talking about food. And I felt that there is a bridge that needs to be connected, uh,
right,
from where the source of food is coming from and what
mhm,
you are actually eating. So that link is missing. So I felt no matter you continue to be in the profession, I felt somewhere inside me that um, I'm not doing justice
mhm,
being in that profession or continuing to be there, where the realities of what's happening in the food industry. And also, like I said, being with the community, working with the land, with the people, I couldn't stay there because I wanted to come back. And there was always this question of uh, also people asking me, when there's a lot of good work going back home, why are you here? So it always used to, hit me in my head, why are you here? Why are you here? Kind of
mhm,
thing. So I thought it's good that I come back, learn from my parents, and I'm passionate about all this because I've been raised in an environment
mhm.
with closer to the nature, closer to the land, closer to the community and the people. So I saw my future there, and I'm very passionate about it. So I thought that coming back is a right decision for me. And Aranya is like a 25, 30-year-old organization, and it's a baby, just like me for my parents. So I thought, if not now, when? If not me, who? That question was there. So I thought I come back and better take this up. Yeah, that's the story behind.
Okay, that's wonderful. So when you're talking about the missing links, uh, I see that you have a special, interest into the microbial life, something that's not quite visible to the naked eye, the world, the magical world, I would say, of uh, mycelium and the fungi world, So what sparked this interest for you?
Uh, Soil, I think, yeah, the statement that you just said, soil and the life invisible, I would
Mm,
want to people to realize that there's a lot of visible life in soil as well. It's just
mm,
that we are more tuned or conditioned to think that the life in the soil is invisible and you can only see it through a microscope.
mm,
Is not the right thing. You
right,
visibly see a lot of life that is there in the soil, and if you observe and if you interact and see how the life in the soil is improving the soil fertility or in terms of soil health, and how they are working together, um,
mm,
combining all the elements. That's a what fascinating world. It's just that you have to observe what's happening. Um, and also linking your food. I mean, like you said, microorganisms and all. When you're
mm,
linking food again to the soil, everything, our health and everything is dependent on the soil, the health of the
mm,
soil. When you
mm,
talk about bacteria, we say,
mm,
how is bacteria useful to us, or things like that? They are microscopic. But when
mm,
you see from certain deficiencies we have in our bodies, like for example, if you could talk about, if we think about B12 as a
right,
nutrient that is
mm,
lacking in almost everybody's bodies right now.
mm,
Everybody is deficient in B12. But what is the actual reason? When you look at the root cause of all of this, our association with soil has become, we've disconnected so much from soil that your B12 you get into your body or into the body of animals through the soil microorganisms. And earlier, our connection with the soil was so much that we used to play in the soil, we used to touch the soil, we used to feel the soil, and all these microorganisms were entering into our bodies, which was helping us synthesize B12. Or the animals that are feeding, they were closer to the soil, putting their mouth closer to the soil and feeding the grass off the soil, where they were getting these nutrients. Now we don't find, we are ultra clean, super sanitized, that we wash our vegetables 10 times that we buy. We don't even want anything that's stuck to the hands or the vegetables. So you find all the B12 deficiencies right now. So that is how disconnected we have become in terms of soil microorganisms, in terms of human health, in terms of animal health and plant health.
mm. Yeah, that's a very important point that you make with regards to B12, because even I, went through this whole being severely deficient on B12, okay, and then realizing that the symptoms that I was having was more of the micronutrient deficiency. That's the core reason. But whenever, you go to a doctor, like you tell that, you have either a gastroenteritis problem or joint pain, or suddenly your mood is off, and you're not able to lift yourself up. So even things like that, I think we need to realize that it is linked to your disconnection from the soil. It's crazy how it is not out in the open a lot more, because once I was deficient, I tried out this test saying that whoever was in my part of my inner circle, I said, okay, why don't you guys go and get a test done? So you're right, 90% of them came out deficient. And there is a false narrative that's been pushed down saying that, okay, B12, if you're a vegetarian, then you'll be deficient in B12, and then there is this whole market of supplements that's there, where you need to have supplements. Okay, that's the only way that you'll be able to fulfill the B12 requirement in your body. But you were absolutely bang on in saying that maybe the only supplement that you need is to get your hands dirty, go gardening, and and also compost, get your hands dirty, and the microbial life will automatically start entering into our body.
Yeah, I think we have to change our wording from making our hands dirty to making our hands cleaner when we put it in the soil. We're
Absolutely.
actually dirtier with not having soil on our hands.
Yeah.
We are more cleaner with the soil on our hands.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
So it's the whole narrative needs to be changed. The whole, I think, nomenclature as to how we view soil. Instead of viewing it as dirt, I think we need to start viewing it as medicinal and something that is healing for our body. So, like you said, you have seen Aranya's transformation over the past more than 25 years it's been since the project has started, right? So you've seen it firsthand from a pretty arid place, if I'm not wrong, and a
Yes.
pretty dry, arid place to now a food forest, okay, and a learning center where, maybe thousands of people by now would have been permaculture graduates from Arania now, right? So can you walk us through as to how you saw it when you were maybe a kid to now, uh, you know, watching it from the forefront and talking about permaculture?
Yeah, it is a wonderful transformation from what I saw initially in the 97, 98 to what it is right now.
Mhm.
It was just nothing. There was no tree. It was just grasses and absolutely no trees in the place. And initially, the plantation or all have started in a very slow phase when we have started. And the main important thing that we have done is planting trees and incorporating organic matter into the soil, soils and water. I think I cannot just talk about soil without touching upon water, and every element is interrelated. So water harvesting, soil, adding more organic matter, planting trees, all of this happened in different phases. So in permaculture principle we have this use small and slow solution. So it wasn't like we transformed everything,
Yeah.
all the 11 acres at one go. It was just trying out in small patches. And as we saw there is some change, we kept extending certain areas. Until 2017, we still had patches on our farm, which we had not touched upon because it took so much time. We just let the nature take its own course because the ecosystem on the other side is developing. So there was a lot of observe and interact, accepting feedback from the soil, from the plants, from the land, and then intervene into the system. And there's a lot of mimicking forest ecosystem that we have done rather than pushing our ideas um, into developing the land.
Mm.
And now it is thriving. I think it sometimes we feel it has reached the climax, and uh, it has reached the climax, and sometimes you feel like it's done. I think this place has reached its peak, where you see the biodiversity that I see in this place is just amazing. Also, I we talk when I document fungi, I documented around 125, 26 species of macrofungi on the farm in just 10 acres. So finding this on an agricultural land, not in a forest ecosystem, I think this is a wonderful example of how biodiversity, how soils rich in carbon can create, they can represent soil health. Fungi is an indicator of soil health. The other biodiversity in terms of birds or animals, this is all a indicator of the life in the soil and life above. And the special I want to stress on how biomass generating plants have contributed so much to the space, because, like I said, the main concentration was on soil. Being a laterite soil, extremely hardy.
Mm.
Perennial trees was one that helped break down the soil, and the trees that generate biomass. We didn't do anything. We just let the trees drop its leaves, and the leaves going as food for your organisms in your soil, and they breaking down the nutrients and giving back to the plants.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And, so a lot of people, okay, when they come to TD also, they're like, okay, where's your garden? And where's your farm? So even we are like, there is no farm here, okay? And here you might see a lot of chaos in the garden. You might not see it like curated, you might not see like neatly pruned fences or, neatly cut out gardens. But what we've also witnessed here is if you get to a stage of doing the basic design right and you can afford the luxury of becoming very lazy gardeners, just watching the leaves fall and create soil. So it is quite an experience to introduce this form of soil restoration work to people, because usually what people think is, when you're talking about any restoration work, is build something concrete, you build a dam, or you do this or you do that. But doing it in a very natural way, and making it like a forest garden, is something that literally gets people very surprised when they come. But once they enter deep inside, I think they can feel the energy shift. And that's when they say, oh, now while you're going inside the forest is when I realized that there is a remarkable shift. And we are right next to the highway. And even it's just like a 5 minutes walk down the highway. And when you see that you are completely covered by trees, and there is a pathway that's going in, and you realize that even with such a small intervention, and we've been just about 8 years old, and
Mhm.
even when the intervention is just 8 years, we see that there can be so much change that can happen, and we feel that's something that uh, people need to realize, that even though the problem may seem urgent, uh, but soil restoration is not really a 100-meter sprint. Okay, but it's a long, enjoyable marathon, and you should enjoy the journey, because the fruits that you get out of it later, okay, is something that you really cherish. Because I think one of my biggest joy has also been to literally, pluck the fruits off the trees that are planted here. And it comes in many forms. Sometimes it comes in the form of a local Senjua pepper that we call bokeh timbur here. Okay, that we pluck, and then we have it. Um, and sometimes it's the chestnuts that just drops onto the ground. Remember, I got some last time when I had come down to Aranya also.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's quite a fascinating journey to see how, once you just set the ball rolling, you can just watch the magic happen. And the biodiversity, like you mentioned, I completely agree. Where once you see that even a small intervention like covering up one of your concrete walls that was there with a creeper like nasturtiums, that invites a bumblebee that you do not see anywhere else, because they don't seem to have the food that is so important for their survival. And then it's like a whole food web, right? So the bees, and they take care of the pollination, and so if they don't have enough, then the bees are not there, then we will not have enough at the end of the day. So I wish, and one of the reasons why we also started Soilstry is because, you know, uh, even though we've gone through a learning curve, and we realize it now, I wish someone would have told all of this, to me when it started off, so that would have given me a lot more confidence. Oh, we are on the right track. Because initially it was like, we have a lot of detractors who come and say that, oh, why don't you, do this? Or why don't you do that? And you feel a little, insecure, saying that, hey, are we on the right path? Because there doesn't seem to be any changes happening in the past 2 years that we are here. And the changes come slowly. And once you realize that as humans, you're not different from the ecosystem that you're trying to regenerate. You are part of nature. You are nature in itself. And the microbial life that we're talking about, we are made up of microbes, right? And there are trillions of microbes in our gut. And there is recent research that has come out that even a human brain, when it's sliced, people will see different kinds of bacteria, fungi that's there, that we are made up of this. So we are part of the ecosystem. So there is a lot of talk that is happening now, with people realizing that gut health probably is the key for you to solve a lot of the ailments that you're facing. Now, when you take a step back and realize what is gut health, right? It's microbial health. Now, where does the microbial health come from? It comes from the soil, right? And it comes from exposing yourself to that macro environment where the microbial life is in abundance. So even you don't even have to drink or eat anything. So if you are in uh, a macro environment where it's that has a biodiverse, you know, very rich in its biodiversity, then just walking in and just breathing in would ensure that you are increasing the biodiversity in terms of what you have in your body. So, yeah, and it's great to see even in the background, a lot of people might be thinking that your background might be like a screensaver. Okay, but it is actually Aranya where she is at right now, and it's beautiful what you guys have done. So, a lot of respect for you and Padma ma'am, Narsanasa, for the amazing work that you've done, and also for the fact that you are, spreading this learning throughout to as many folks as possible because you have those permaculture courses running. Okay, so let's talk a bit about permaculture, because permaculture, by the word itself, people think it's something from the outside, what it is. So can you just walk us through as to what is permaculture if someone has to ask about it?
Permaculture, I feel it is a way of thinking and way of living, and it's not just a set of agricultural practices. So the notion of permaculture being restricted to land or restricted to farms or soil, I think this notion has to be removed off our minds because it starts from the thinking. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of living, way of life, where it opens your window to see through a holistic thinking, a systems thinking approach, where you are looking at how all elements are interconnected. You see all the elements as together, not as individual parts.
Right.
It could be any element, an integration of systems, integration of all living things, integration of people, community. It's about everything. It is, yeah, not just about farm. It's not just about land. It's about being resilient. It's about in any profession, be it in a business, be it in a um, uh, any profession that you are in, be it at a home level or working with your co-workers. All of these you can implement permaculture being anywhere in the world, and in the principles are so that anywhere in your life, in your thinking, personal life.
Yeah, and there is this
It
description of
is
permaculture that
also feel that when we talk about, especially when we are talking applied permaculture and the Indian permaculture context, I think we have to push this as much because for everyone, permaculture is a hippie concept where elitists do this. But
Mm,
I think we have to come out of that idea, how permaculture applies. And permaculture is, though the name and though the co-founders are from somewhere else, but most of those principles that we are talking about and the ethics that exists in our culture, in our Indian culture, in our traditional agricultural system or in our way of living. So there is a lot of culture that is associated with growing or anything. It's not just growing something. It is about how you are living and how culture is associated with it.
right. And one of those beautiful descriptions of permaculture that I've come across is someone had remarked that permaculture is a revolution that is disguised as gardening.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It
so,
is. It's also activism. There's a lot of social things. I think we cannot separate social things and uh, agriculture or anything else. Everything is interrelated. So permaculture is activism. It starts from your home. It
right.
starts from within you, and you can create magic.
My internet connection seems to be a little patchy. I'm not sure if you're able to hear me.
I'm able to hear what's up.
Able to hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
So, um, yeah, I mean, that's the reason I think we've also, felt this need to have a very, a distilled version of introducing permaculture to people. So we decided to also have introduction to permaculture course in partnership with, again, the amazing team at Brahat, where um, at the end of this month, I think it's 28th and 29th, we have a 2-day introduction to permaculture workshop where we are trying to talk about the same things that you said, where, permaculture is something that you can apply as a way of living anywhere you are, whether you are a city dweller, whether you have a garden, you don't have a garden, but the ethics and the principles of permaculture is so, widely encompassing that it is incredible that it can be applied to any function of life as such, right?
Mhm.
So, there is something called, let's say, an urban side of permaculture where we have, I'm sure today, a lot of folks who are urban city dwellers who might be wondering, saying that, hey, when how do I apply this? Because I live in a city, and uh, how do I imbibe the principles of permaculture? But you definitely can, and I think this is something that people need to really explore, because whoever that I've met has been touched by permaculture. It's very um, a life-changing experience, I would say. And if people want to explore, there is also the option of volunteering. Even before you decide to, let's say, do a permaculture design certification course, there is this option of volunteering in different places. So we offer volunteering options. There is volunteering options in Aranya. So can you also talk about the volunteering options there, and how people can deeply immerse themselves into the way of life of permaculture at Aranya, and what do they get to experience as a volunteer there?
We have this prerequisite that only a permaculture design holder is eligible to do volunteering at Aranya. We've made it this way because we felt at some point that the language we speak, the permaculture language we speak, was not being able to understand, was not being taken in the same way that we speak with them if you're not done a permaculture course or if you're not aware of what permaculture is.
Mm,
So when somebody has done the course, then you talk the permaculture language of bringing something or doing something, then they do it from that perspective. But if they don't have the perspective of permaculture, then we always find a lag, and more work needs to be put in from our end to work with people who have no knowledge of it. So we have made the PDC mandatory, and
okay.
there is no specific task unless the person is interested that they would like to do this. But um, it just goes with the flow of life, what happens every day.
Mm,
And we work with unorganized sectors. It's like we work with farmers, we work with different communities, we work with the land who are coming here, or we work with living entities, be it the bullocks and everything, the rain and everything. This is not something that I can say at 5:30 it's going to rain, so you come at 5:30, let's do this. So
mm,
it is an unorganized sector, and things go as per how the nature decides, how the climate decides, and how the community and the people decide. So
mm,
that's how the volunteering experience opens up for everyone. And sometimes they stay for short term, and then they just continue to stay for 1.5 years, where they'll be completely immersed. Not just in the Aranya as a farm, but our Aranya is also an NGO, Aranya Agricultural Alternatives, which is a
mm.
25-year-old organization where we are working with communities. So they start off volunteering and they get into the real time projects where they're working with the community and learning from the grassroots level people as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair enough. I think the language that of permaculture, okay, is something that yeah, it's very important if people are looking to kind of spend time volunteering there. So let's talk about the language, right? So permaculture design certification course, who is it meant for? Can anyone take it up, or is it only for some people who are interested on like certain things? So what is the PDC that is offered at Aranya right now?
I would say that it's open for everyone. It is not that only certain people who are interested in agriculture should do, or people who are interested in gardening should do. It is open for everyone, because when I say permaculture is a way of thinking and way of living, and you can
Mhm.
implement it anywhere. So there is nothing this is set for this people who are doing this profession or that profession. It's a universal thing. You can implement it anywhere. So it is open for professions of all sorts. And if you look at the diversity of people who come to the PDC course at Aranya, you would not believe. Some people would say, why are they here? Why are the actors here? Why are the doctors here? Why are the chartered accountants here? Why are the pilots here? So there's a diverse group of people who are coming, who are not into agriculture, not into gardening, but they understand that they are getting sensible things from here where they can implement it in their life, in their professions, and take it forward. And we get a lot of feedback also after years after doing the PDC, how life has changed, how the things they choose, the
Right.
acts they do. So those are the little things that make big difference in people's life. So um, yeah, it is not just restricted to certain group of people or set of people.
And what is the duration? How long is it for?
It's a 13-day residential course. 13 days residential course.
That's
And
great. So,
we've been offering only offline courses because we are more into um, practical permaculture, not
mm,
applied permaculture, not just the theory, but it's a very intense, and we want everybody to stay here while doing the course, because we want them to understand how it is to live with the community for 13 days,
mm,
coexisting, co-living with the nature. So
mm,
we insist people stay here for the 13 days. So this is a recognized, internationally recognized certification course. It's a 72-hour um, course. We say 72 hours on the certificate, but it's actually, people say it's 172, sir, and ma'am, not 72 hours. You have to, we say just add one next to the 72 because it's very intense. It starts off 6:30 in the morning, and people not really, they don't get tired, but they reflect after going back home after the 13 days.
Wonderful. And also, I think permaculture gives you tools with which you can, uh, start considering yourself as a soil warrior, because you start looking at things very differently. And the best way, again, I can explain to someone about permaculture or doing a PDC is that you wear, let's say, a different kind of lenses, and then you start seeing the whole world itself differently. And when you're talking about soil restoration, just to give a perspective to our audience here, uh, I think more than 50% in terms of what the recent stats are, more than 50% of our topsoil is washed away. And scientists are actually saying that we have less than 60 harvests left in the world. And wherever you look, what was easily growing earlier with very little effort is very hard to grow. Like for instance, out here in Darjeeling, we had something called oranges and the Darjeeling oranges and the Darjeeling cardamom. You know, so now it's very difficult to grow that because, and it's all related to soil health. And if one has to, participate into uh, soil restoration, soil regeneration. So can you also share inputs as to, as a city dweller, what can they do? What are the little steps that they can take to be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem?
Mhm. So we can start. It starts off at home. You don't have to go anywhere to do anything, or you don't have to do any course to do to look at regenerate the soils. It just starts from within you and from your home. The choices you make. What kind
Mm,
of choices in terms of uh, resources that we are using, in terms of the material that we are using, in terms of the waste that we are generating, and where is the waste that we are generating going back. So if we think of, there is the reuse, reduce, recycle is the most common thing that we have learned since childhood. I think we need to add a rethink and refuse to our 3 Rs.
yeah.
Before you choose what kind of material you're using, what kind of material you're purchasing, what you're ordering from, online things, what is it that you're getting? Rethink. Do you really need it? And when somebody is offering you something which has something that cannot go back into the soil, where it cannot enrich the soil anymore, you can always refuse it. So these two things, doing nothing, just staying home, implementing those two things would reduce a lot of burden that we are making on the soil. And like you are a pro in waste management, and you might have covered a lot of the sessions and composting, how we can use the kitchen scraps that we generate at home, put back into the soil. And most of them don't have even space to do something at home, like being in an apartment, you don't have a balcony garden, you don't have anything. But what you can do is, again, you have parks close by, you have an apartment as an entire thing where you can, as a community, try to make some small changes in terms of waste segregation. Or even in, like, in apartments, whatever the biomass that is falling down, all of them, they tend to burn it. There is no composting. They feel whatever the tree is dropping is all dirt,
Yeah.
and in turn not giving it the nutrition that it deserves, which it is making for itself, and externally add something. So uh, educating people, because you are exposed to a lot of knowledge and you're staying in an urban setting, going to schools, educating children, educating the house help or the caretakers who are coming to your home to help you in using like stuff like bioenzymes instead of using heavy chemicals. I mean, the shift doesn't have to be a sudden shift from using Head and Shoulders to Rishikakai. It can be very slow. The transition can be very slow. Um, and you can keep teaching these to children in your home, to the people you are working with, to the domestic help that you're getting home. These are all some small things which do not require more effort. And also, we generate a lot of what we call as food waste, which is not actually a waste, which is a gold. Like in terms, many times we have leftover curd, buttermilk. You can just mix those with a spoon of jaggery, let it settle for a day or two, add it into your soils wherever you're growing, into backyard, rooftop, or in your apartment. Just put that back. Even the rice kanji, that can be added back. These are all small things where you can contribute from your daily life. You don't
Right.
have to
Right.
do big. You don't have to step out. You don't have to do um, big things. And even people who are staying in independent houses, if they have open space, you can do different methods of composting. There's the bokashi, just putting all your things in the bucket, closing it, plant a tree once it's ready.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we are trying to cover in our workshop, the upcoming Soilstry workshop that's there on, I think, 22nd and 23rd,
Mm-hmm.
upcoming Saturday and Sunday, where we are trying to, challenge the notion that you cannot compost anywhere. And it is a notion, it is an invitation to people to say that, "Okay, join this today's workshop. We assure you that we will get you to compost, anywhere you are, whatever. You may just have a balcony, you might not even have a balcony, because for us, there is a special joy in seeing life being created, through black gold. And it's been quite a fascinating journey for us also, where last year, I think, one of the impacts that we are very proud of is that we have managed to take care of almost 80 tons, that's 80,000 kgs of biodegradable waste that would have been otherwise dumped into a dump yard. We managed to compost that and make it into soil through various initiatives that we have taken, either home composting or community composting units that we have built up. Now, I would just pause here and request all our members who are part of this webinar to start posting their questions if you have any for Sneha. And we will take up the questions in another 5 minutes. So you can start posting the questions on chat. Simran would be noting them down, and we'll start taking it up in the next 5 minutes. Okay, I already see one question being posted there, and that's by Kiran. And I think let more come in, and then we'll start taking in the questions also. But coming back to uh, soil regeneration, when I first received the email as an invitation to be part of the National Permaculture Convergence, I loved the signature, where Narsana sir, I think, had written mulch, mulch, mulch. I still remember that, and I was like, wow, you know, there can be different signature lines, and this is probably the best one that I've come across. Okay, so let's talk about one simple technique of mulching. So let's try and explain what mulching is to our audience here.
Uh, Mulching is nothing but whatever the biomass that is generated from the plants. It is nothing but covering where the stem is, not closer to the stem. Just give some gap and you add whatever. It could be leaves, it could be dry leaves, it
Hmm.
can be your kitchen waste, it could be cardboard, it can be um, old cotton saris which are degradable, it
Mhm.
can be stone as well. So if you go to areas like Ladakh where you don't
Mhm.
have even biomass available,
Mhm.
where there is no leaf and litter that's being generated, they just use
Uh,
stones.
yeah.
Stone mulching, that's stone mulching. And if you have biomass available, you use leaves.
Mhm.
If you have cardboard, all your Amazon cardboard boxes are also a great source that you're generating. If you have cardboard, you can do sheet mulching, you can add it like a mulch. Uh, and if there is life, obviously it is breaking down into faster into the smaller particles, which is making it available for the soil. Yeah.
Right. And I think,
The moisture is one important thing, I think. It retains moisture. It
yeah.
creates a habitat for life and the
Mhm.
food for life.
Right.
So uh, when when you are going away with, it's just like having a bucket soaked, a bucket of water soaked with a cotton sari or leaves, and a bucket of water which is just exposed to the sunlight. There is evaporation faster in the one that's exposed, and the one that has something soaked in it with the moisture, it takes longer to evaporate. So you're creating retaining that moisture at your plant base, so it's not evaporating, or you don't have to put in so much effort to do that.
Yeah. And I think another way to look at it would also to be to also say it as soil is shy,
Yeah,
and it's like
covering
when you,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like your new daughter-in-law, like Nai Bahu, who is coming to a house. She's very shy, So soil is shy. You need to cover her always, and that's one of like the biggest learning that we've also been through. And if you're able to give her enough food before you start asking for food from the soil, you will be blessed with abundance, is what we realized. And I think the other way to also look at it would be to say that it's like uh, your top 6 inches contains the maximum amount of like the microbial life. So you would want to kind of keep it as your fixed deposit. You would
Mhm.
never even want to turn that soil to plant anything. You would much rather want to do uh, a ground up, like a gardening system where you first give to the land before you decide to take from it. So that's what we've done with the gardens that we have here also, where we have first, let's say through sheet mulching or through the compost that we've generated, we have created about top six layer, 6 to about like let's say a feet, sometimes even 2 feet. Now that we're experimenting with different kinds of like raised beds, we've got now created 2 feet of raised beds because we've generated so much compost. And so the bottom 6 inches, that is what people who generally till to grow food, is intact. So now we
Mhm.
are feeding it with 2 feet of soil that we have created from the compost that we have generated from the food that we've kind of collected from the community as waste and converted that into black gold. And we're feeding the soil more than what we are taking from it. So I think that harmonious relationship needs to come back where we need to first feed her before we decided to ask food from the soil. So it's been a very fascinating journey for us also of natural farming, where we managed to show that you could grow. We were competing with one of the local farmers here who had started adding urea to get bigger harvests of cauliflowers. And we were like, the land has not been, worked upon for like a long time. when we came in here. It was pretty barren. It was pretty fallow. So we were like, give us a year. Maybe we will be able to generate a bigger sized, uh, produce ourselves. So it was a challenge. So we just used the compost. We gave it about a year. And by the time we harvested, the cauliflower was bigger than my head, and we were like showcasing it and saying that, yes, it is possible to grow food without really tilling the soil. And that's where I think we would also need to understand that one of the bad practices is actually modern agriculture. We can go deeper into how chemical farming and green revolution ruined thousands of years of civilizational knowledge that we had. But I think the very fact or a very simple technique of plowing your land or tilling the land, or turning the soil as much as possible so that you are trying to grow food either organically or inorganically, can also be challenged by first creating a raised bed, and for that raised bed, of course, you need soil, and that's where you link up that to waste management. Start collecting the waste from the community and start, growing soil. And in urban spaces, I see a lot of terraces, that's just bare. If you're able to create um, food forests in the terraces, then I think you would be able to save a lot on your AC bills also, because one of the reasons why buildings are heating up is because you've got this concrete that's taking in all the heat from the top, right? So, yeah, I think once you get into it, it becomes even more fascinating.
Yes, absolutely.
So, I think Simran, so we are almost there at the finish line. So let's take in a few questions. Okay.
Sure.
Yes. I think there are so many interesting questions, but I'll just try to choose one for our audience right now. So I'll just take this one, like by Hari Kalaji. Uh, Ma'am is asking, like, how can we, like, what do we mean by mimicking forest systems? Can we go into explanation of it a bit?
Uh, so mimicking forest systems, meaning you whatever the kind of agriculture that you're doing, you mimic a forest ecosystem where it is not resource intensive, it is not energy intensive, where you're just replicating, you're working together with all the elements in nature. It is, so if you look at the modern current agriculture, it is just about growing crops, it is just about growing a certain crop, not all kinds of things. There is no diversity, there is no like how you see in a forest ecosystem, there is a lot of diversity, there is a lot of um, uh, uh, life that is there. There is integration of elements, there is integration of all kinds of life, which you don't see in the conventional agricultural system which is happening. So you mimic the natural ecosystem where you, when you are working in the system, the amount of energy effort you're putting is less, where you don't feel doing this as a burden. Yeah.
Right. And also, I think what I'd like to add to that is, um, one way to, from a very local context here, a lot of people to grow their gardens, they go to the forest to collect the forest soil, and they call it jungle komal here. And they think it is really good for certain kinds of plants, because it is more fungal dominated. So that's why azaleas and orchids do really well. But I would say that's a very, a practice that is disastrous to the forest life. The moment you start combing the forest of the food that it's generating for itself, you are inviting trouble. So that's why I think we need to um, highlight the fact that that is not a natural way. So it is, if you need soil, even a fungal dominated soil, you can create it by yourself. So these are certain things that we're trying to cover in the workshops that we do, the Soilstry workshops, that you need not go to the forest to collect the fungal dominated soil. You can do it at home by yourself too. And yeah, so mimicking nature is also going back into like our roots as to how things used to work earlier, because earlier it was we with our Indic knowledge systems, had a very harmonious way of doing things, and that's why I love calling permaculture as Purkho ka culture, because everything was permaculture earlier. It's nothing new that is being brought in. It is something that has already been practiced. Okay, so yeah, Simran, let's keep taking questions. I know it's 5:55,
Yes,
but I'm okay to kind of
yes.
extend because this has been a fascinating conversation. And if people have questions, I'm okay to answer. And if Sneha is also okay, yeah,
Yes, please.
yeah.
Wonderful. I think we can take this question since we are speaking about the agriculture too. So, will a fertilizer-free agriculture will be able to sustain the growing population today?
Yes, absolutely. I think I don't know whose question it is, but I think before we start thinking about the world's food problems, we have to think about the food in our home. That question always brings up when we talk about permaculture or any other alternative agriculture we speak about, be it ZBNF or biodynamic or any other school of thoughts other than the conventional farming. This question comes up: can this feed the world? Can not having fertilizer or not adding these? But before thinking of the world, whoever has this question, I want you to think about the food, kind of food you're eating at your home. How much are we able to grow, and how much are we able to sustain to ourselves? And yes, absolutely, we can feed the world with no fertilizer. And also, if you look at the practices and the systems that we are resorting to right now with the modern agricultural practices, there is a lot of damage that we are doing to our soils, and the soil is lacking the nutrition that the plant needs, and humans are lacking the nutrients that um, we need. So it is, though, if you want to produce more, if you're adding all of these because the soil is lacking, you will get that produce, but the quality of food that you're getting might not same that you get when it's grown in a no artificial fertilizer, no chemical fertilizer, no pesticide, no herbicide kind of thing. It is it is just this that we are doing to our soils, overburdening them with the salts that we are injecting into them. And it is just so you have to always compare soil with like Simran was talking in the introduction, she was referring soil to as Bhumata. So we say Bhutalli, Bhumata. So it's a she. It's we always refer to soil as a she, and someone who has the ability to reproduce, ability and who is fertile enough to produce things. So the amount of fertilizers, the artificial fertilizers that we are adding it to it, imagine, would you give the same to a woman who's in her reproductive age, giving, nurturing the life that is growing? You would not give, because you know that the mother is going to die. But when you are seeing a mother who's in a age that she's going to be reproductive, give birth, childbirth, you don't why don't we see soil from that perspective? How giving, being taking artificial hormones or artificial things into our bodies, how is it destroying human body? It's going to be the same um with the soil as well. So you have to always see soil from the perspective of a living entity, as a she who has the ability to nurture, to take care, to reproduce all the life forms on this earth.
Beautiful. Since now we are speaking of soil, I think we can take this as the follow-up question. Like, are all soil good for health? How do we distinguish healthy and not so healthy soil?
All, yeah, all soils are good. It's just that there are soils that are poor and rich, you know, where there are soils that are poor, then you put in more effort and make them more healthy and more richer. But there is nothing called good or bad soils. Every soil is good soil. Every soil is good one. It's just the poor and the rich soils, but there is no good or bad soils. And like I said, the practices that we are resorting to are the ones that are destroying the soil health. And then if the soil is lacking life in it, if there is more uh, chemicals and pesticides and all these sorts of things that are dumped into your soil, then you can say the soil is not healthy enough, because it's just overloaded with lot of unnatural stuff into it, and it's just saturated. It tries to kick out everything. Then you can talk about the soil health, but not in terms of good and bad. There is no good and bad soil.
We have one question, like since many of our participants are joining from the city, like how city dwellers can create thriving spaces in their communities.
I, I think we've discussed about it, how like working in the nearest parks, composting,
Yes.
creating more green spaces, volunteering in organizations or in spaces who is working on soil regeneration or tree plantation. You can collaborate with them in whatever capacity you can always join them and do something. That's always there. And also, like I said, the kind of materials we choose to use in our homes, in our daily lives, you can always rethink and refuse and choose things that can go back into the soil and act as a food to the soil or enrich the soil, but not something that stays in the soil for thousands of years.
Since you and Utsav also mentioned about the fungi, we have many questions on that lines too. Like what is the role of the microbes, uh, mycorrhizae and fungi in soil, and how do we enhance it in our soil in containers in the cities? By Kiranji, we have this question.
Okay, the role of microbes. Uh, have you ever seen when it's raining and you get out when it rains? What happens when you go out and see observing the soil or in your potting mixes? There's a lot of life that comes out. There's a lot of light that comes out in the soil. There's a lot of the life that goes into the soil. So the aeration that it creates, their feces is adding the forms of nitrogen that your soil takes. The tunnels that they're creating is creating spaces in your soil, which is letting the soil be more porous. The excreta is adding more nutrition to the soil. So these are all the role of microbes, and they're also helping the plant in uptake of nutrients, which is not available to them in the direct form from the nature. So only with the help of these soil microbes is the plant able to uptake this nutrition, because the soil microbes are breaking them into the form of that nutrient that the plant can uptake. And mycorrhiza, it is helping the plant communicate, and especially with respect to uh, the pot- potassium, phosphorus. These are some two main, especially phosphorus is some of the main nutrients that the fungi is mycorrhizal fungi is helping in uptake for the plant. The plant cannot source this nutrient, so it is the fungi is the one that is helping the plant uptake this nutrient by breaking down the organic matter, by reaching to the parts of the soil that the plant is not able to reach, and this is reaching that space and helping it take the nutrition.
Right. And if I'd like to add to that, why I think we need to all get interested into the fungi world is that we have done so little research into it. And we know about plants, we know about animals, but the fungi world is neither plants nor animals. It's a beautiful new world in itself. And I've been recently reading a book that I would recommend to everyone if you are interested about the microbial life, about mycelium, about fungi. So I'm not sure if you guys are able to see it on the screen, but it's called The Entangled Life by Merlin Shandrick. Okay, so this is a beautiful book, and I highly recommend folks to kind of read this. We will send it in the chat also. But why I think it's important for us to get used to be aware about that is next time that you see a mushroom, you might not want to kick it. You might actually want to nod your head and acknowledge that there is a living system there, which is highly, highly intelligent, and which is the more you know about it, it seems like you are entering into a different magical world altogether. And also, I feel to a large extent, a lot of the answers that we seek to overcome some of the challenges that we see on that we are facing with the climate crisis, the fungi world, the Hood Wide Web that uh, binds us all together in this very fascinating information highway that our internet actually mimics the internet of the forest. So that's something that we should all get interested into. And it's like a topic that the deeper that you go, the more fascinating you get into. And like Sneha, you would be going, taking your camera and trying to click mushrooms and trying to figure out which one is it. And it is, yeah, it is really, really wonderful, the whole world of it.
Yes, they like you rightly said, Utsav, the animals and plants, we always look at them as the kingdoms that exist, and that's the only kingdom that exists as well. But many of us don't appreciate and often underlook the kingdom of fungi, which is a whole kingdom by itself. And you call fungi being the primary decomposer. So when you say something is a primary decomposes, because it's the top thing. So that's the first thing that's decomposing everything that you're tossing out, anything that's degradable, be it a twig that's falling off a tree, be it a fruit that's rotting in your home, or be it a leaf that is falling on the ground. The fungi is the first one, the primary decomposer, which is taking over and decomposing, breaking it, and adding back nutrition to the soil when it's feeding on it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Simran, let's keep
Yes.
taking as many questions as possible. I see there are a lot of questions,
Yes.
which is great. I'm happy that the
Mhm.
audience is participating in such a great way.
Mm. Yes. I think we can take this question, like, what does Whispers of Gaia means?
Yeah. I saw that one.
Mm.
So, uh, yeah, Gaia, yeah, it in Indian language also means cow, which is interesting because we were actually referring to Mother Goddess, Earth, Goddess of Earth. And in Greek mythology, Gaia is the name that is given to the Goddess of Earth. And when we say whispers of Gaia, we are actually referring to the conversations that revolve around the earth itself. So it's that particular reference. And yeah, a lot of respect to Gau Mata too, because I think her way of contributing to earth is fascinating. I mean, there was this composting book that I was reading once. It was called the Rodal Book of Composting. And, they had mentioned the very NPK levels of all kinds of animals. And surprisingly, I saw the NPK levels of the cow was not as great as the rabbit, And then they also had acknowledged that, the NPK levels might be lower, but it's micronutrients that me and Sneha were kind of, literally shouting from the top of a roof saying that micronutrients, microbial life is something that they are still trying to figure out as to why it is such good for the soil, I think. And so yeah, if you can call it Whispers of Gaia, that from an Indian context, or Whispers of Gaia from the Greek mythology context, also it's great. And then connected to that, I think I'd also want to recommend one more book if you guys are interested about permaculture. It's called Gaia's Garden by Toby Hemingway. It's a fascinating book, and when I did my permaculture course and I happened to read that book, it gave me a lot of context, and it is something that is a book that a layman could also, start reading. So we will send that also in the WhatsApp group. So yes, the next question.
We have question on bioenzymes too. Like bioenzymes, Naveen ji is asking, bioenzymes are already multi-purpose, but can we use them for using different catalysts to increase vegetation and agricultural purposes? And do we have any more suggested purposes of it? And what are they? And if there is any book or reading to for that?
Yeah, like I said, the fermenting jaggery and the rice kanji or the buttermilk, this fermentation process, when you do this and let it sit for a couple of days, then there is the microbial growth that's developing, where you're adding sugars. Jaggery is your sugar, which is adding, and if you're keeping it next to something, and there's all kinds of life that starts to feed on it and ferment, and adding more life to it. So you're adding it back to your soils. So it is not just as a cleaning agent. So we've heard bioenzymes to be cleaning agents, like with lime, with fruit peels, with even your soap nut and all these. But these are some things that you can add into your soil by fermenting curd, buttermilk, and even your um, chana dal, chickpea flour. If you have any old chickpea flour, you can add that to the um, buttermilk and jaggery and add to the soils. Book as such, I'm not aware. Maybe somebody, if anybody knows anything, you can suggest.
I'd recommend joining the Soilstry course that's upcoming. We'll talk more about bioenzyme. But yeah, for us, bioenzymes has been such a fascinating thing. We've been using it for all cleaning purposes that is there. And also when we did a black water project for the community where we are TD centered in between and we've got houses on both sides, the villages. So in I very simple language, I'd put it, we are taking people's poop in our land, and because we've got a system that we've figured out that we would be able to take it through a various filtration process, and we realize it's a resource. But however, we want people to give us the poop, but not with the harpic. So one of the preconditions that we did when we signed an MOU with all the families is that you'll have to use bioenzymes when you're cleaning a toilet because we don't want to get harpic. And the very simple reason being that if you add a drop of harpic, okay, you kill all the microbial life, the good and the bad bacteria. Whereas if you add bioenzymes, it does the job of you for ensuring your hygiene, but it also starts working on multiplying the good bacteria that is there. So yeah, it's a bioenzymes in itself is a very, very, I would say, a fascinating thing that one can start practicing because it's not just about one recipe. Each home, it's like how sambar is made into, each house has its own taste of sambar. Similarly, you can experiment into making your own kinds of bioenzyme by adding what's locally available as that extra ingredient apart from citrus, which helps in the cleaning. So yeah, I highly recommend people to check out bioenzymes because even whether you are sitting in a city or like anywhere else, that's something that you can do, apart from composting. Bioenzymes is remarkable.
Mhm.
I think this one question we can take quickly is about like, can we use plastic containers for balcony gardening? Or do we have the risk of microplastic in it? And I think also while composting, can we use plastic containers?
I think I would pass over the question to you, so.
Sure. So I think, yeah, it's kind of subjective, because right now, everything is plastic. I mean, right from the clothes that's there and the the furnitures that we get into our homes to everything, right? So I would say if you feel that it is something that can be reused, and if it's a hard plastic and you want to kind of, avoid the fact that you want to go ahead and buy something new again, I would say go ahead and use it. Just watch out for any flaking that happens, then definitely avoid that. If possible, yes, if you have access to terracotta, it is great. If not, then if you are reusing it, it's great. But don't, I would say, go ahead and buy plastic pots because any kind of a support that we give to the plastic industry is detrimental. So if you're reusing it, I would say it's still okay and it's hard HDPE kind of plastic, then it's fine. But I would not recommend buying, uh, a plastic pot. That is unfortunately the most common thing that we see across the city now because of its convenience. Yeah.
This one specific question related to sandbox tree. What to do with a sandbox tree, also known as dynamite tree, as it is toxic for soil if compost.
I'm sorry, I don't know the sandbox tree. Which I don't. Where is it from? Which
I
which
think
area?
Aprajita has mentioned that.
Prajita.
Yeah. So if you give us some more information, even I'm not too aware about
Contact.
sandbox tree.
I know a sandbox tree, which I don't know if it's the same sandbox tree, which is used as a fish poison, but I don't know if you're referring to the same sandbox tree.
Uh, she's mentioning it's found in it's not native for India, but it's found, she found it in Moradabad.
Yeah, she's saying, yeah, it's fish poison.
I don't know if it's if it's the same one, then I think it's the seed of the sandbox tree that is more poisonous than the leaf, Aprajita. The seed is the one that they use to poison the fish in the water, and it's not the leaf that is harmful.
Let the fungi take over the sandbox tree. Yeah, it can like decompose the sandbox tree too.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we should keep this momentum going on of all our questions. So I would, after post our workshop, I would also share the details about our both the upcoming workshop. We would continue our this discussion on permaculture and Soilstry both. So, Utsav, over to you. Do you want to take some other questions in the chat, and or we look? We have
Uh,
almost covered it.
hmm. Okay, there is
Yes.
one that says how to know cardboard is safe and doesn't have any recycled plastic in it for composting. I think if you look at cardboard, the safest way to distinguish whether it's got plastic or any kind of a coloring that might be harmful for the soil is just look at brown cardboard. So if it's brown in color and you do not see any plastic tape in it, nothing that is printed in it, I think you can go ahead and use it. While using it for mulching or composting, ensure that you take off the metal clips, you take off the plastic, and sometimes you'll realize that there is a brown color cardboard underneath, and at the top there is this plastic layer, so you can take off the plastic layer. Like Sneha mentioned, it's quite useful when you're practicing sheet mulching, which is again a very interesting permaculture way of growing food on, let's say, places where you have grass. So without really tilling the land, on top of grass itself, you can sheet mulch, create a garden bed in which you can immediately start growing food.
Yeah. If I may add to it, the other way is when you soak this cardboard paper in the water or expose it to water and you try to tear the cardboard, the paper tears and the plastic stays back. So you can easily know that there is a layer of thin plastic either in between the cardboard or on the top of the cardboard, where you can say, choose either remove it and or say no to that cardboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we have covered maximum of our questions right now.
Mm.
And yes, I think just by seeing your backdrop, Sneha ji, I think most of our participants now want to come for to Aranya soon. And definitely once when I share about TD, they would also plan the next trip to TD. So would share about Aranya and TD both to our audience post our workshop. Yes.
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 Okay, that's great.
Okay.
I just wanted to suggest few books if anyone's interested on the soil. There
Yes.
is a book called Soil and Soil Health by Albert Howard. And also there is another book called Soil Regeneration by Claude Bourguignon. I'll write those names in the chat box. So these are, though both are written by non-Indians, you see a lot of Indian context. You see a lot of places where they have written this book when they were staying in India. So the practices they refer to are from states, different states of India, and you can learn a lot from how systems existed before and how things have changed post Green Revolution, and how the soils have lost their fertility, and all these things. It's a wonderful book, and there's a lot of methods on regeneration as well. And also another book I would suggest about composting is On Composting by Dr. Venkat. He's the first permaculturist in India who's invited Bill here and Bill Mollison here, and we have done the first permaculture course here. So it's a short book. You can find these very interesting books. You can finish them reading soon as well. It's not like a big book where you take a lot of time. So these are some books that I would suggest on the soil. And teaming with microbes and teaming with fungi are also two interesting books if you would like to know more about microbes, more about fungi, and the authors are Jeff Lovenels.
I have
Yeah, and
noted out those tips and yeah,
yeah, and I'm
yeah,
glad that
sir.
you mentioned about
Mm.
Albert Howard because, one, just to give our audience the context, so he's known as the father of modern organic farming, but if you look at how did he get the inspiration, it's called the indoor model of composting. So when he was posted, I think in India as an agricultural officer in early like 1920s or so, is when he observed people in India practicing a certain kind of farming. So that's something that he took up, and then it's kind of spread across the Western world as organic farming. But it's just about, like I said, going back and looking at what our ancestors were doing for ages. So it's quite interesting. And even the person who started, I think his name is Rudolf Steiner, who started biodynamic farming. Even he has drawn a lot of inspiration from some of the ancient Vedic practices that we had. So, yeah, it's important that we go back and also start understanding how things were done earlier. Maybe even if you are not going ahead and studying the scriptures, but also going back and talking to our grandfathers, grandmothers, and people who would have such great insights as to how they used to do things earlier.
Yes.
Yes, the one principle of permaculture, we talk about catch and store energy. So it is not always about catching and storing sun energy or water as an energy or biomass as an energy, but also knowledge of our ancestors, knowledge of our grandparents, where we are catching and storing, and it can be transferred to the next generations and for ourselves as well.
And it's amazing that 80% of the people are still there with us till the end. So I think we are almost at the end. So let's wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Sneha. It's been uh, awesome to talk to you, and thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights. Thank you, Broad Team, Anshuman, and Simran for facilitating this, and thank you for the entire audience here who's been so participative in this whole thing. And hopefully, we'll see you again with another session of Whispers of Gaia, and hope to see you in some of the permaculture workshops or the Soilstry workshops that we do. And if you get a chance to do a permaculture course, then just check out Aranya. They would be having permaculture courses also. I don't know how you do it, Sneha, do. Uh, Running this marathon courses, because when we do permaculture courses here, it exhausts us so much that we think, okay, we're done for the year. But you guys do it throughout the year. So kudos to the amazing family team that you guys have there.
Thank you, Utsav. Thank you, Simran. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Anshuman. Thank you, everyone who has joined this call. It's been the conversation has been great, and I enjoyed all your questions and interacting with you, Utsav. Thank you for making it smooth and easy as well, making it more
Right.
interactive.
Yeah.
Made it easy. Yeah.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank
We will have a recording shared on our group. Whoever would want to re-refer it for the all the references which were given and all the insights out there. Thank you so much.
thank you. Thank you all so much.
Yeah. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.